All right, we got another full weekend of games coming up in the 2021 college football season. In today's video, I'm going to tell you how to lose money betting on those games. Let's go. Yeah, good morning in that, but it's Uncle Lou here, though. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and guess what? I'm live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it also, and in addition to that as well, hey, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. Did you know I post college football videos almost every single day of the year? It's true. Believe it or not, some of them are even watchable. You can let me know about this one at the end of the video after you watch it, down in the comments below. Be sure to let me know, too, which picks it is you think I got wrong. All right, as usual, all the numbers I use in today's video, the over, unders, odds, spreads, all that kind of stuff is going to come straight from www.betnow.eu. I've been using this website for years. I'm comfortable with it. I've never had any problem getting money in or out. You've always treated me right. So to be consistent, always use www.betnow.eu to look up the numbers for the week's games. The numbers you see in today's video are going to be accurate as of Friday afternoon around 1 p.m. If you want to get signed up on BetNow, head on over there. Create your account and enter the promo code Uncle Lou. That's one word, all lowercase letters, Uncle Lou, and they'll give you a bonus on whatever you deposit. Good luck. All right, we're going to kick things off at 12 o'clock on CBS. Missouri on the road at the number one ranked Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia a huge favorite in this one, 39.5. Now, in my opinion, when it comes to betting big lines like this, you really have to be careful. You can't just look at it and go, okay, do I think Georgia is 39.5 points better than Mizzou? Because the answer to that question is yes. You have to look at other factors, right? What is a team, in this case Georgia, likely to do in the second half against Missouri? Are they going to take the starters out, especially on offense, put a lot of backups in, slow the game down with a running game, things like that? Those are things that would work against you if you wanted to bet Georgia at 39.5. However, I do think finally, and my fingers are crossed, finally, JT Daniels is going to play this week, I think. If that happens, I think Georgia can exceed this 39.5 without any problem at all. Missouri is the second worst team in the SEC, and their defense is absolutely horrible. Regardless of who starts, let's say Stetson Bennett gets to start and they decide to let JT Daniels play in the second half. Well, you're trying to knock that rust off, shake the rust off. JT Daniels hasn't played in 4 or 5 weeks. It's highly unlikely they would send JT Daniels into the game in the second half, even if it's a 40 or 50-point game, just to let him hand off a bunch of times. They're going to want to see him throw the ball. They're going to want him to get some actual game time reps running the actual offense, and in my opinion, that will include throwing the ball. If that happens, I think Georgia can cover the spread without any problem at all. If you go back to when we played Vandy, which was another huge spread, I think that spread was 36 or 38 maybe. Might have even been 34. It was in the 30s. Of course, Georgia won that game 62-0. In that game, which was ironically the last game that JT Daniels played in, he started the game. He only played the first quarter, but after the first quarter, Georgia was up 35-0. I don't know if we'll score 35 points in the first quarter against Mizzou, but I definitely think Georgia will be up to a 5-touchdown lead or so by halftime, and then they just need another couple of touchdowns in the second half to seal the deal and cover the spread. Georgia's defense is what it is, obviously without star outside linebacker Adam Anderson, who's been temporarily suspended from the team pending the investigation into the accusations made against him yesterday, I guess it was, involving rape or sexual assault or however you want to refer to it. We'll see how that plays out, but he's not with the team now. He will be missed. He's Georgia's leading sack getter so far this year, but Georgia's got a lot of depth on defense. We rotate guys in and out. I don't want to come on here and say it doesn't matter that we don't have Adam Anderson or that we don't need Adam Anderson. Of course we need Adam Anderson. He's one of the best players on the best defense in America. But I don't think missing Adam Anderson is going to have much of an impact on this game. Offensively, news came out today that we're going to be missing our starting left tackle, Jamari Sawyer. He's going to be out for a couple of weeks. We've got a couple of different options we can plug in there at left tackle. Again, none of them are as good as Jamari Sawyer, or else they would be playing left tackle and not Jamari Sawyer. But against Mizzou, I don't think these two particular losses are that big of a deal. I think Georgia will get back some of its wide receivers this week, which will help offensively. I think Georgia can cover the 39.5 here. Missouri's going to struggle to move the ball. Never mind score points. Give me the dogs. Lay to 39.5. All right, 12 o'clock over on ABC. Undefeated Wake Forest. And doesn't it seem weird to say that? We're in November, and we're having to refer to Wake Forest as undefeated. They go on the road to play one of the preseason favorites in the ACC, North Carolina. North Carolina and Clemson were the two highest rated ACC teams to start the season. Both of them have fell completely off the map. UNC has had sort of a yo-yo season up and down. They looked pretty good in some weeks and looked absolutely terrible in others. Sam Howell, a Heisman candidate in the preseason, not so much anymore. North Carolina has not looked good week in and week out this year like a lot of us assumed they would. Wake Forest, on the other hand, I think one of, if not the biggest surprises of the 2021 college football season so far. Maybe you throw Michigan State in there too. I think this could be a good game, and believe it or not, North Carolina is actually favored by 2.5 in this one. It is a home game for North Carolina. I'm having a hard time making a decision on Wake Forest at this point in the season from week to week. I don't think Wake Forest is going to end the regular season 12-0. If you look at their remaining schedule, it's pretty tough. 3 of their last 4 games are on the road, and some of their toughest competition of the season is backloaded during the last month of the season, which we're getting ready to start now. So I don't think Wake Forest is going to go 12-0, but trying to figure out which 1 or 2 of the remaining 4 games they might lose, well, that's a little bit harder to do. If North Carolina plays its best game, could they beat Wake Forest? Yes, I think they could. If North Carolina plays bad, like we've seen them play some weeks, could they lose to Wake Forest? Yes, and they could get blown out. Wake Forest offense is fun to watch. If you haven't watched a Wake Forest game, you guys should check some of this out. And I'm not sure how many people know this or not, but in my opinion, the leader for the Heisman, Kenneth Walker, the running back from Michigan State, he transferred from Wake Forest. Wake Forest offense is unbelievable this year. You can imagine how much better it would be if they still had a guy like Kenneth Walker. But anyway, I think this could be a pretty good game. I hate to pick against Wake Forest because it's been such a good story, but I'm going to take the home team here. I'm going to take North Carolina and lay the 2.5 points. 12:30 over on the ESPN 3. Oh, God. Good luck finding this one. Georgia Tech on the road at Miami. Miami, a surprising second-half turnaround, right? Injuries to their first 2 quarterbacks forced them to play this Van Dyke kid, and what do you know? He's pretty good. They beat Pitt on the road last week. Only Pitt's second loss of the season. Miami has looked a lot better the last few weeks than they looked the first month of the season. There's no doubt about it. Georgia Tech, on the other hand, has been very disappointing to me. I mean, I'm a Georgia fan. I don't try to hide that, so I have to hate Georgia Tech. It's a law. I thought Georgia Tech would be a pretty good team year 3, Jeff Collins, and it just hasn't worked out. The quarterback hasn't developed like he needed to. The defense seems to be in neutral, maybe even getting a little bit worse. It's hard to understand. I really did think Georgia Tech would be an improved team this year, and they're going to finish, what are they going to finish, 3-9, 4-8, something like that. It's not going to be a good season for Georgia Tech. Miami, on the other hand, like I said, has been hot lately. They're a 10.5-point home favorite. I think they can win this game by twice that much. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Miami win this game by 3 touchdowns. I'm going to take the home team, Miami, and lay the 10.5. 3:30, we got Michigan State on the road at Purdue. And the only reason I'm including this game, well, there's a couple of reasons. Michigan State had the big win last week against in-state rival Michigan. And now this week they got to turn around and go on the road and play Purdue. Now, Purdue's not a very good team. I'll give you that. But they did beat Iowa when Iowa was ranked 2. Remember that? Or it seems like forever ago. It was actually only 3 or 4 weeks ago. Iowa was the second ranked team in America in the AP poll a few weeks ago. They've really fallen off the map since then, and of course took a bad beating at the hands of a not very good Purdue team. Can Michigan State bounce back from one of the biggest wins they've had probably since, was it 2015 or 2016? When Michigan State made the playoffs and got beat 38-0 or whatever it was, but that was the last really good year they had. This was the best win they've had since then for sure. Huge win at home against an undefeated in-state top 10 Michigan team. Huge emotional win for Michigan State. Can they turn it back around this week and beat Purdue on the road? They're only a 3-point favorite. Michigan State was trailing by 16 in that game to Michigan. It really could have gone the other way, and Michigan State could have ended up losing, but it doesn't matter now. Point is, they get a check in a win column. They remain undefeated. 3 points is not a very big spread at all. Kenneth Walker could and should have another huge day in this game. I'm going to take Michigan State. I don't think Michigan State is going to finish the regular season undefeated. They still have to play They still have to play Penn State and Ohio State. I don't think they're going to go 12-0, but I do think they're going to beat Purdue. Give me Sparty on the road. Lay to 3 points. All right, 3:30 on ESPN2, Tulsa at Cincinnati. And it's put up or shut up time for Cincinnati. The committee has showed you what they think of you, Cincinnati. And they don't think very highly of you based on where you're at, both record-wise and in both the AP and the coaches poll. The playoff committee had Cincinnati coming in at number 6. And the bad news is you got teams behind Cincinnati that have opportunities for much better wins the rest of the season than anything Cincinnati could possibly have. Why they did not rank SMU and Houston, I don't want to go down that conspiracy road, but SMU and Houston are two pretty good teams, in my opinion, probably deserve to be ranked in the top 25. The playoff committee doesn't have either of those teams in their top 25, and those are the best two teams remaining on Cincinnati's schedule. Without them being ranked in the top 25 in the college football playoff poll, the committee doesn't have to give them credit for a quote-unquote quality win, right? So what does Cincinnati have to do if they have any chance of making the playoffs? Well, the same thing they've had to do all season long. Beat the 2 Power 5 teams on their opponent, on their schedule. They already did that. They won at Notre Dame, they won at Indiana. The rest of the teams on the schedule, they have got to blow them out. It's not enough. Whether it's fair or not is besides the point. It doesn't matter what you or I think about the group of 5 and whether they belong or don't belong in this. If they've got any chance of getting in, beating opponents is not enough. They've got to absolutely destroy everyone they play. And for the last 2 weeks, they've been unable to do that. A struggle win against Navy and a very unimpressive win last week against Tulane, where even the final score was not indicative of how close that game was. That game was close into the second half. Cincinnati cannot afford to do that anymore this season. If they've got any chance of getting in, they need a lot of things to happen around them, right? They need certain teams to lose to other teams. We all know that. But they've got to start blowing these bad teams out. It could start this week with a home game against Tulsa. Cincinnati's a 22.5-point favorite. I've been betting on Cincinnati every week because they know, like I know, they've got to blow teams out. And even though they didn't cover the last 2 weeks, generally speaking, they have been covering the spread this season. I'm going to say they turn it around this week after a 2-week skid, if you want to call it that, even though they won. Not impressive. Didn't cover the spread the last 2 weeks. I think they turn it around this weekend and absolutely steamroll Tulsa. Give me Cincinnati, later 22.5. All right, 3:30 on CBS, and man, this could be a really good game. Auburn at Texas A&M. Texas A&M's a 5-point favorite. And believe it or not, both of these teams still have an opportunity to win the SEC West. Now, Auburn, all they've got to do is win their games. Texas A&M needs to win their games and then have some other things happen too. But these teams are still technically alive. Texas A&M has a win over Alabama, so if Texas A&M and Bama were to finish with the same number of losses, Texas A&M would own the tiebreaker over Bama. Auburn still gets to play Bama the last game of the regular season in the Iron Bowl. So if Auburn beats Alabama, then Auburn has the tiebreaker over Alabama. So it could become a complicated situation towards the end of the year, but we can talk more about that when those things get closer. Auburn on the road at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a 5-point favorite in this one. Auburn had a pretty good win last week against an Ole Miss team. Auburn's defense was able to pretty much shut down that Ole Miss offense. Matt Corral did not have a good game. Bo Nix did. And honestly, that's the key for Auburn the rest of the way. For Auburn to beat the good teams remaining on their schedule, your Texas A&Ms and your Alabamas in particular, Bo Nix is going to have probably 2 of his best games, not only of the season, but of his career. Now, we've seen Bo Nix beat Alabama before 2 seasons ago as a freshman. He beat Alabama at home. He'll have a chance to do that again at the end of the year. Can they beat Texas A&M on the road? Texas A&M 5-point favorite. Texas A&M playing a little bit better now than they were in the beginning of the season, right? Lost their quarterback early in the year. Sort of muddled around the mid part of the season, losing unexplainable games to Arkansas and Mississippi State before the following week somehow beating Alabama, where Texas A&M quarterback Jake Calzada, the Italian Hot Pocket, had the game of his career. And look, it's no secret. That's how you beat Alabama, right? Your quarterback usually, you look at anybody that's beat Alabama in recent memory, it's usually because the quarterback had the game of their life, or at the very least played a great game. Can Calzada do that again this week to beat a pretty good Auburn team? I don't know. We'll see. This is a tough game to me. I think Texas A&M being a 5-point favorite is probably about right. Weird things happen in Auburn games, but a lot of times those things happen at home for Auburn. I think it would be very exciting if Auburn beat Texas A&M. That would set up one of the most significant and important Iron Bowls that we've seen in a long time at the end of this season. And probably somewhere down deep on the inside, I'll be pulling for Auburn to win this game because I'm a fan of great college football games and great matchups. And I think if Auburn and Alabama get to that Iron Bowl under a winner-take-all scenario where, the winner wins the West, the winner gets a shot at Georgia and potentially a shot at the playoffs, I think that would make for an amazing Iron Bowl. So probably somewhere down deep, I'll be pulling for Auburn. But for betting purposes, I just can't see them going into Texas A&M and getting the win. I'm going to take Texas A&M at home and lay to 5 points. All right, 4 o'clock on the ACC Network, you got NC State at Florida State. A lot of the things I said about Miami, you can apply to Florida State. Not impressive in the beginning part of the season. Fans mad, talk of coaches being on hot seats, wanting quarterback changes. Now, both of these teams seem to have turned things around. Florida State playing much better football the last month than they did the first month of the season. September was an absolute disaster for Florida State. I remember talking on these videos and on the live shows that we could be looking at a 1-11 season for Florida State or 2-10. Well, that's not going to happen now. They didn't get the win last week on the road against Clemson, but it was a competitive game. And even though Clemson is down, Florida State's been down too. So not very many people, especially heading into this season, would have given Florida State any chance at all to beat Clemson. It ended up being a very competitive game going down basically to the wire with Florida State trying that weird lateral play at the end of the game. Whatever, if you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. NC State has been about who we thought they would be, I think, at least who I thought they would be. Probably not the best team in the ACC, definitely not the worst, better than average. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see NC State finish in the top 20 or top 25, and right now they're sitting in that general area. They're a 2.5-point road favorite against Florida State. I'm kind of on the Florida State and Miami train right now. Not that I think they're elite teams all of a sudden, but I think they're way better than the average person is giving them credit for. I think sort of the overall opinion, just kind of general consensus about Florida State and Miami is that they're terrible because there was so much negative publicity and attention around Miami and Florida State for the first 5-6 weeks of the season. I honestly feel like both of these teams are playing way better now, and I don't think the betting lines reflect that. I took Georgia Tech and laid the points against I took Miami and laid the points against Georgia Tech earlier in this video. I'm going to take Florida State to pull the outright upset here. I don't even want the 2.5 points. Give me Florida State on the money line. All right, getting into the primetime games now, and what a televised massacre here. LSU on the road at Alabama, and Alabama's a 28.5-point favorite. They will win by more than 28.5. LSU is terrible. Orgeron riding the season out. He's lame duck coach. They've already announced he's being replaced at the end of the year. Why he's still there, a little bit of a head scratcher to me. Alabama's got motivation to rub this in LSU's face because of the comments that Ed Orgeron made after the game in 2019, the last time LSU played at Alabama, a game that LSU won, of course, on their way to a 15-0 national title season. And basically there's the sort of viral clip from Ed Orgeron in the locker room after the game saying, roll tide what? F them or whatever he said, F them or whatever he said. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Bama's going to make them pay. This is going to be not worth watching. Give me Alabama, lay the 28.5 points. Okay, probably the game I'm most excited to watch this week other than my Georgia Bulldogs. 7 o'clock on ESPN2. Tennessee on the road at Kentucky. And guess what? Tennessee is now a 1-point favorite in this game. Kentucky, an absolute beatdown last week. Kentucky, an embarrassing performance last week. They started out hot. They were ranked in the top 15. I think they even got as high as 12 at one point. Got ran over by Georgia. Lost again last week to, was it Mississippi State? And now they have to host Tennessee. Not a red-hot Tennessee, but an offense that's been moving the ball and putting up some points, even against teams like Alabama from a few weeks ago where that game was competitive well into the second half. Things are not looking good for Kentucky in this game, in my opinion. I think Tennessee can get this win on the road against Kentucky. Now, if Kentucky is able to be two-dimensional on offense, run the ball and throw the ball, I think they've got a chance to win this game. Tennessee's defense is not great. It's been better than I thought it would be. I thought Tennessee would have probably the worst defense in the SEC this season. Turns out they don't. Now, they're not top 5 or anything like that, but they're definitely not at the bottom either. Kentucky can't afford to be one-dimensional in this game, and they cannot turn the ball over. Tennessee, on the other hand, same kind of thing. Hendon Hooker, big improvement over Joe Milton. He can't turn the ball over either. He's probably going to have to make some plays with his legs, which he's had no problem doing for the majority of this season. And Tennessee, I think, needs to be able to run the ball. I think this will be a close game. I'm going to go with Tennessee here. I'm not very confident in this one, and it's not anything against Tennessee or for Kentucky. I just think this is a tough game to handicap this week. Give me Tennessee and lay the 1. Okay, the ABC primetime game of the week this week, Pac-12. Try to contain your excitement. Oregon on the road at Washington, and Oregon is a 1-touchdown favorite, a 7-point favorite in this game. Oregon finally did last week what they should have been doing every week, which is blow out inferior competition. Oregon had the great game week 2 on the road against Ohio State, where they pulled off a big win while missing 2 of their best players defensively. And they've basically just kind of been trotting along the rest of the season, and that trotting cost them in a loss to Stanford. None of their other wins have been all that impressive either until last week when they finally handled business and beat somebody like they were supposed to. Maybe they turned a corner. Maybe they figured it out. This is kind of a rivalry game. Washington has been extremely disappointing this year, though, in my opinion. They were a preseason top 15 team in a lot of polls. Hasn't worked out that way. Oregon does have to play on the road, hostile environment. I'm going to say Oregon covers again this week, though. I think Oregon realizes they are not guaranteed to get into the college playoff just by winning out and going 12-1 with a Pac-12 title. They're ranked ahead of Ohio State right now, and I think they deserve to be. They won head-to-head. But Ohio State has some huge games coming up with teams ranked in the top 10. The Pac-12 doesn't even have a single team ranked other than Oregon. So the strength of schedule is going to catch up with Oregon at some point. They cannot afford to win these games by 2, 3, 4 points. I'm going to take Oregon on the road and lay to 7. And the last one for today, 7:30 on SEC Network, Florida on the road at South Carolina. And is this a keep your job game for Dan Mullen? That I don't know, but I will say this. There has been more talk this week about Dan Mullen's future at Florida than probably any other week that Dan Mullen has been the head coach at Florida. There are a lot of unhappy people in a lot of different places when it comes to Dan Mullen and his future at Florida. You've got some fans, you've got some alumni, you've got some administration, you've got the Florida media that is really riding Dan Mullen now. The one thing we don't know really is what's going on in the locker room. And if I'm a Florida fan, really, that would be my biggest concern for the remainder of the season. I think Florida is better than every other team left on their schedule. However, if that locker room gives up, if it's some kind of a split or divided locker room between Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson, if there's anything like that going on, I could see a scenario where maybe Florida loses 2 more games. That Florida State game looming at the end of the season is going to be a big one. I think Dan Mullen really needs to win that game. Florida is precariously close to finding themselves in a situation where they are looking up at both Miami and Florida State. That was not the case when Dan Mullen got there. Miami and Florida State have both had multiple coaching changes in a short period of time and were not good teams or good programs. Right now, in my opinion, both Florida State and Miami are playing better football than Florida, and that's not good for Dan Mullen. Florida needs to win this game if for Dan Mullen's sake, in my opinion. South Carolina is not a good team. Florida is a huge favorite. They're favored by 20.5, almost 3 touchdowns. It's a road game at night in Columbia. It can be a tricky place to play. I just don't see a way Florida loses this game, and it's not because I think Florida's going to have some huge, win one for the Gipper moment with Dan Mullen or anything like that. They're going to come out and play lights out football. I just think South Carolina really is that bad this year. They're still playing that 25-year-old grad assistant equipment manager, Zebediah Noland at quarterback. Not a lot of talent on that team. They need some recruiting classes. They need some more Jimmys and Joes in there. It's hard for me to imagine Florida being so bad, so cashed out on this season that they find a way to lose to South Carolina. So I do not think Florida will lose the game. 20.5, though, I don't know about that. I'm going to roll the dice here. It's at home game for Columbia at night. South Carolina would love to get this win. It wouldn't really mean anything for the season, but it could be some good momentum and nice to get a big win for Shane Beamer for his first year in Columbia. And you can debate over how big of a win really is beating Florida. But when you're South Carolina, beating Florida is still a big deal. I'm going to take South Carolina and the 20.5 points, but I do think Florida wins the game. All right, there you go. How to lose money betting on college football week 10, 2021. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you enjoy the weekend's games of college football. I know I will. I'll be live streaming tomorrow at noon on the Patreon page and at 7 o'clock right here on this YouTube channel. Later today, I'll have the hype and hate video out from Missouri. Appreciate you guys watching. Have a good morning.